I essentially was in the process of potentially taking a job up in Washington, game design specifically, and a coworker from Activision, he's like, hey, you know, come down here, come down up to the Peninsula for lunch, and I got a buddy that I'd like you to meet. He's got some good ideas. And I said, okay, there's definitely like sort of an outside of the box, futuristic way of thinking in terms of like how do we spectate professional gaming. You know, he brought up the idea of like he had this startup company or this concept where, you know, this is at the time where virtual reality, you know, viewing content in a virtual reality environment was sort of like this new upcoming in thing. And, you know, Sumit had this idea, this concept of basically being able to tap into a game while it's being played live and be able to sort of navigate inside that virtual space. That concept kind of carried over to like, well, not only can you do this for like professional esport gaming events, but let's say one of your favorite streamers is streaming live on their channel. Hey, instead of me sitting here and watching on my flat screen and I have a virtual headset, I could put on my virtual headset and go into that specific game that they're playing live stream and fly around and just watch them. That was part of our arrangement with him bringing me on as sort of like an advisor, was to go out and learn the industry, because I had never live streamed or anything. I had this character that I did a long time ago on YouTube. You know, you record and then you go bring it into Vegas or whatever and you edit, a lot of post stuff, right? Like to bring that character to a live streaming platform, I'm like, that was scary, but the idea was to learn about the streaming industry and network a little bit, and there was just something about meeting Sumit and the timing of that, and it literally came down to a decision. I mean, I'm talking 2 weeks, whereas like, do I go here? Do we move the family up to Washington? I'm a California kid. You know, that's gonna be a big jump, but it's sort of a known path, right? Like I know exactly what I'm gonna do. I know what 3 years down the line what that company is gonna look like, 5 years. Or there's this Sumit who's very energetic, passionate, very successful himself. He's got this idea. It kind of falls in the same realm. I get to start up an old passion. And ultimately, I mean, it was just like, you know, my wife, Leo, you'd make the decision. And she ultimately made the decision. She's like, just go for your passion. And that's kind of how it started. Going back to just like building levels, one of the things, you know, you always have your one monitor, your two monitors for, you know, sort of the engine you're working in. And then here's your third monitor. On my third monitor, I always had like Summit 1G up on the live stream. I'd be watching Ninja play the old Halo games, you know, because he was so good at it. But there's just a draw to just like have that, and I could just look up every couple moments. Oh, it's 30 to 35, game goes to 50. It's just kind of getting close. Now my attention's up here. Like, so the whole streaming was certainly an outlet, an entertainment type outlet, rather than just listening to music. Sometimes you get in the zone listening to music, right? But video games, whatever, the background noise. That's how I got into Twitch. I just have it on my third screen and just watch it. And eventually, I kind of like started following certain people. It's funny because when I first started streaming on Twitch, like the chat was the narrative. Like, you could stream a game and you can entertain through the game, but like you need that third dimension, and that third dimension is the chat. Like, you know, because someone says something in the chat, then now you have something you can draw a story off of, right? Like if as the character always says, like if a guy flaps his gums in the chat, it's being a negative person, then it's like I'm gonna address that in a fun way. In the beginning, and that's when I'm talking like where I had like 20 or 30 viewers, and then at 200-300, then it becomes more like there's a lot of energy there, and it's like, okay, cool, now things are really rocking and rolling. Now it's really tough to engage what the chat's doing. It's actually become a little bit more difficult on where do you put your sort of your energy into, because you've got donations and people that are subbing, and you certainly want to acknowledge that, right? Sure. Like that's. But at the same time, how can you still make sure that the people that are actually watching, the other, you know, thousands of people that are watching, are getting noticed or feeling wanted or empowered? And I think that's the most important part for a streamer. I think a lot of things develop from the chat. Like if I'm in a moment and I'll say, you know, like one example is there's like the violence, speed, momentum sort of quote that the doctor says a lot. I mean, he said that after he killed like 3 guys in H1Z1, he was feeling good and felt powerful, and he screamed at violence, speed, momentum. And I noticed that the chat was going crazy, and they kept on repeating and repeating it. I think given sort of the nature of my channel and sort of the odd nature that it's driven by a character, like sort of the big picture that I'm looking at is potentially like a TV show, because of the fictional story that's surrounding the character, you know, like being the most dominating video game player in the entire world. Like, I think that right there is a superpower. So, I mean, 2 or 3 years, you know, you'd like to work up to that step. Like, I certainly would want to take it to the TV show series. If there's movie opportunities with the character, I'm open to that. But one thing that I am lacking on a personal level is a creative challenge. Right now, just streaming and kind of doing the same thing, playing the same content, it's not necessarily wearing me down. It just doesn't feel creatively challenging enough. And I don't know what that next level is or what that outlet could be. You know, I feel like I try to tackle, and again, in an organic way, like I'll look at the chat. If something catches my eye in chat during any sort of downtime between a game, or if I've died early and my teammate's still alive and I'm spectating him, I'll look at the chat. If I see something that is worth bringing up on stream and making kind of like a narrative or story out of it. God, this industry is so tricky. It's constantly just evolving and changing. You know, Hulu, Netflix, you know, you just got a feeling that they're gonna look at these numbers and just go, okay, we need to get into the live streaming